Hi, good evening, and good afternoon, and good morning. This is Chris Petri. Welcome everyone to another fantastic video here. We're going to have some fun. We're going to do a study on some still life, just a quick study on some still life items we have in the studio here. I've been working on some portrait work and some figure work. I know many of you work on portrait style work as well as figure work. So I'm doing a lot of that in my evenings and on the weekends. And this is I'm just going to show you some stuff I've been working on recently. Anyway, this would be a ceramic cast I have at home here in the studio. And so this is just some fun. And if we go with the rule of drawing 60% of the time and painting 40% of the time as a good rule to work on our watercolor and drawing skills, that's a great ratio. So a lot of times I want to paint more, but I realize I have to work more on my drawing, so I'll draw and then just do some splashy paint on there, just have a little fun with the watercolor paints. So I don't feel like I'm missing out on the painting end of it, because I like painting I like them both the same, really, painting and drawing. But if I'm doing a lot of pencil drawing and things and pen drawings, I really miss doing the watercolors too. So usually I'll try to break out some paints and just have some fun and splash around with some colors just to get something on the pencil drawing to make it a little more fun and exciting. And then also when I go back to look at my pencil drawings, I have a little more fun doing that because it looks a little more exciting with some color on there. Sometimes pencil drawings can look a little boring. That's my own personal take on things, but I mean, everyone's different. Some people absolutely are enthralled with pencil drawings by themselves, and that's fine too. But for me, I always like seeing a little bit of color on there. And isn't that what we love about watercolor? Tons of color, interesting value changes and colors. And this is another profile of that cast I have. And this is from a Charles Reed book I have. So this is like a sailor type guy with a hat. That was fun to do. So this is more of my recent things over the last like 6 months, a year. And this is a nice picture of a young man sitting in a chair. And we have, this is I guess a guy by the beach maybe. There's some ocean back there and some cool sunlight and nice some colors, and that was a lot of fun to paint. And then this one here is a nice lady. This is some Arches rough paper, which I found very difficult to work on. It's almost like once you put the paint on, it's hard to move the paint around. Whereas when you use like Fabriano, you can move the paint around quite easily. So this is a different painting on Fabriano versus some Arches rough. So for portrait work and figure work, I think it's easier to work on Fabriano. But Arches is great too, as you know, for like a lot of other landscapes and seascapes and things like that, and any kind of really. But figure work, I find it's definitely Fabriano works great for the moving around the paint and having a little more time to mix the paint on the paper and move around the washes. And so I'm just kind of working on my portrait work, keeping busy on that. This is another nice woman seated pose, more of a profile look here. And this is again from Charles. These are mostly all Charles Reed paintings. A couple I did at the workshops, Charles Reed workshops, and then we have this is a young man seated pose, and he's got his cool shades on. And this was at a recent Charles Reed workshop. He had some really cool antique photographs that he brought with him to the workshop, and then we all got to pick our photographs and paint with those and use the photographs as references. So this was from a black and white photo, and then we had to try to incorporate color into it, and also really good tonal values and capture the real bright sunlight of the scene. And so this one was really fun to paint. And some still life stuff here. And also this one was really fun. I did this recently from a video on YouTube. Route 66 it's a great documentary on Route 66, and there was all these great characters in the movie, or in the documentary movie, let's say documentary film. And so I just, I had so much fun watching it. The second time I put it on, I said, let me start drawing and painting from the video. So I stopped the video on each of the characters that I thought were interesting that I was when I was watching the video, and I kind of did that. I stopped the video and I drew each one, and I kind of made it a collage of portraits, so you can see. And this was really fun because I was just chilling out watching the TV while I was working, so it didn't feel like I was really working at it. It felt like I was just having fun while I was drawing and painting. And then I just added some interesting British lines across the film. The filmmaker was British, and so I added some of the British look to it with the lines, and added some other little interesting things. The Route 66 sign there, and so this was a lot of fun to do, and this was really loose, fun, just practicing up on doing portrait work, drawing, doing the light pencil drawing, and then going in and just doing the colors, and working from a TV, a large panel TV. I think my panel TV is a 32-inch panel, flat panel TV. So it's large. It's large enough that I can paint from it, and get a really good effect and see all the details of each of the portraits that I was doing. So that's some of the stuff I've been working on lately. I hope anyone who wants to see anything specifically on my channel, just I can cover things that you might want me to paint or draw. I tend to do a lot of the same things, just because repetition is really how we get good at watercolors, and so the more we do the same thing over and over, we just become better at it, and we get really solid with the fundamentals of everything. So we'll do the same thing. We'll do another still life here. We're going to do a quick study, and I'll work from a workbook I have set up across from me, and I'll just have to change my setup a bit. And I'll tape down the paper. I'm using Fabriano Artistico paper here. I'll tape down the corners here just to keep it from moving around. And then maybe I'll make an interesting border on it with some more tape. I find that doing quick studies, at times it's really fun to use tape. You can tape around your painting, drawing and painting, and then when you peel off the tape, you have a really great, crisp, nice, clean edge around your painting, and then that actually, it makes it more pleasing to look at. So when you're doing your studies, and you want to refer back to them and look at them, it's more pleasing if you have things taped off, and maybe you're looking at it more as like a finished work, a finished painting, versus maybe just splashes on paper, and it kind of just gives it a little more of a finished look, which I like a lot. I still do this all the time. I tape off things just to have a nice border, and we'll just use a retractable pencil. I'll zoom in here a little. And we'll do a quick study here. Let's do some still life, and maybe we'll do a contour drawing. I'm just going really slow. I'm looking at the reference photo in front of me and trying to capture the angles I see, and And with contour drawing, we don't necessarily have to silhouette everything. We can go and then travel around the painting. That's a shadow there, and then I'm just making some indications of some flowers, and there's some interesting leaf forms here. Okay, so this is a tabletop, maybe a kitchen table, and some fruit and a little sugar container and a vase, and we'll just have some fun. We did our contour drawing. We can maybe have a little more details in this bowl here, so we'll just add a little tiny detail to that, maybe some detail to the detail to the vase, maybe a little bit, and some shadow. And we have some shadow here, so I'll try to really do a super light sketch on the shadowing, just so I don't forget to add those in, because a good time to add shadows is when we're painting the object. Let's say this is an orange. This is an orange in the painting here. We can add that shadow right away as we're painting the orange and kind of fuse it together, the shadow and the orange together at one time, and it has a much more pleasing effect when we're looking at it in the finished painting versus if we just paint the orange and then wait till later to add the shadow in. It's harder to actually make it feel as if it's all working together toward the same look of just being, all together solidified in one harmonious way like it is in real life. So okay, so we have a couple indication lines maybe here and there just to alright, and then we have our palette, normal palette that we always use, with just chock full of super moist paints. I just reloaded my palette here with plenty of fresh squeezed tube paint. That's really what we're looking for when we're painting watercolors in the style that we do here on our channel. We always want to have nice fresh paint, and if we keep it with a little bit of a spritzer bottle to liven it up a little bit, that's fine. I keep my palette in the winter time next to a window in a plastic bag, or in the summertime I put it in a plastic bag and keep it in the refrigerator with a damp, moist piece of paper towel, and that keeps the paints nice and moist, so that when I take the paints out of the refrigerator, out of the plastic bag, they're just like they are here, nice and moist and ready to go. So we'll get started here with our painting. We're just going to have a fun time. We'll get some fresh water. It's always a key to have fresh, clean water. And we try to change our water at least for a small composition like this, maybe a couple times we'll change the water. Depends on how muddy the water gets, but it's good to keep clean water when you're working with, trying to get that effect of lots of clean color. And so that's, I know sometimes I don't change the water as often, and I can tell when I go in to do more of a lighter area where I'm just going to have a touch of color on the white paper, it can disrupt that look of really nice, beautiful color, like a really light tonal value. If I'm using, like, so if I know I'm going to block in some really light tonal values where I'm just going to use a touch of color, I'll definitely change out the water for certain there at that point and put fresh, clean water in, because if my water is really murky and then I go in and try to add like a really light blue or a light orange or yellow, it can really affect the overall look. So here we'll start out. Let's let me see. Let's try. We'll start off over here on the left. I'll get some orange, cadmium orange, and some yellow ochre. Some raw umber, a little bit of cadmium red, and that'll be good. We'll start to work on our orange here. Cad yellow maybe, and a little bit of cadmium red. And then here I'm just trying to definitely get a nice, lots of variation. I'll clean the brush and tap it on a paper towel, my brush on a paper towel, and then I'll try to blend these in. It's really warm in the studio here, so this is where I have an issue sometimes. If the heat's on and it's really warm in the studio, it's hard to keep the watercolors moist on the paper so that I can blend a little more. So that's something to keep in mind, maybe trying to turn down the heat a little bit in the studio when we're working. That can really be a help. And I'm using some cobalt blue and cadmium orange for the shadow. Maybe a little bit of mineral violet as well. And then maybe some more cadmium yellow and orange. And we're going to let the paints mingle on the paper. Some more cobalt blue. Maybe a little bit of a burnt umber just to gray that down a little. And we'll go over here. I'll spin around this way. Spin the brush around. We'll try to get this shadow over here. And we'll continue the shadowing over here underneath this. pick up a little bit of the orange reflecting into the underside of this bowl here. And then maybe some alizarin crimson here. And then some more shadowing here. So I'm following my picture out of my workbook here. This is the Painting Flowers with Charles Reed book. And then we'll go in and we'll do our shadow over here underneath this jar. A little bit of cerulean blue, so I'm hoping I'm getting the and some more mineral violet here. And we could just keep adding until we get the right look we're looking for, adding the extra bit of paint. And I'll add a little and then we'll go in for some alizarin crimson here, and we'll get some washes on the jar here. And some cobalt blue mixed in with some mineral violet. And I'm just carefully looking at the picture and then trying to fine-tune the tonal values here. And I'll do a little splashing just to get some variety. Some of these larger areas where there's a lot of washes here, or large sections of wash, I'll try to just add in some variety. And then we have a tomato over here, so we'll start working on the tomato, and we'll and some mineral violet. And some alizarin crimson over here. And I'm trying to make sure I get those dark tonal values with the red, the cadmium red here, and the alizarin crimson over here. Sometimes some tissue to blot up if the paint gets a little. And some reflected color onto that vase here, and we'll get a little orange here, just some tiny bit of orange for some color up here, for color on the top of that. And some more cobalt blue. A little bit of the burnt umber. Then I can go into this background area and just have a little bit of the so I try to work the areas kind of at the same time, the background and the lemon. Let's do the lemon here. So cad lemon yellow and cadmium yellow, a mixture of the two. We leave some highlights on this, on the lemon. And I see a little green in there, some olive green maybe. And some raw umber over here. I can see some raw umber there. And then some more yellow, cad yellow, maybe a touch of orange, cadmium orange. Then we'll mix a little gray, some cobalt blue and brown, raw burnt umber, and we'll capture a little of that. A little bit of French ultramarine blue for that darker tonal value. Under here I see a bit of and occasionally you'll notice sometimes tonal values we'll adjust them as we go. And I splash a little bit here and there. All right, we'll move over to the vase. So we'll use some of that cerulean blue and mineral violet. And maybe a little bit of yellow ochre. And then I just try to, a little bit of cerulean blue maybe. Okay, now we're kind of really, it's starting to come together, looking better. We just keep working our washes, looking at our reference photograph. And I think here we can maybe make a nice stop. We'll take a break and we'll come back, we'll do a part 2 and we'll finish up this painting.